Alright, moving on vlog, talking about video game movies. Now, the main point is to talk about good video game movies because there are actually a few. You might know of one or two of them because generally they're hard to find unless you like a specific franchise. But, as a gamer, I've seen a bunch of video game movies because, like most people, you like the games and the movie comes out based on the game, you want to go see it. And so you get some crappy ones, like pretty much all of them. But you get a few okay ones. Like the Mortal Kombat movies aren't horrific, and like if they were remade now, even if it was the exact same thing, they'd actually be okay because at least they did it like it should have been done. It's like the game's a tournament, just make the movie a tournament, and it's okay. That's the story of the game. You did the actual story of the game. You just had so-so actors. I mean, you know, wasn't bad. They weren't horrible movies. I actually like the second one, Annihilation, for some reason. I think it's just because it has more characters in it. I just really like the movie for some reason. But it wasn't a horrible movie, and like there was no one famous in it at all. Like, no offense to the people in the movies, but the only person that was actually famous was the guy who played Raiden, because he was Ajax in the Warriors, which is a great movie. You should see that. And also, you can buy the game for that, because that's a movie that got a game that actually came out great. And it's pretty much Grand Theft Auto without the cars and guns. But it was an okay movie. It wasn't like horrible, and the CG kind of sucked because it was older. And the second movie had like slightly better CG, but it still looked like crap. And like the animalities at the end were I think claymation. I don't even really remember, but I'm pretty sure they were claymation. But for other video game movies, you have complete crap. You have the Super Mario Brothers movies, which pretty much everyone hates. Admittedly, I like that too, but I think that's because when I first saw it, I was a little kid. So it was kind of like I didn't really think about it as a video game movie. I just knew it had the name of Super Mario Brothers, but I guess I didn't connect it as much as I should have. Like someone else who would have if they were older when they first saw it. But I actually like that because like I said, I was really young when I first saw it, and so I just enjoyed it as a kid. And other video game movies I watch, and I generally, when I watch movies in general, I kind of just, watch the movie. I don't compare it to this or that. I just, like, turn my brain off and I watch every movie. Like, just period. I just watch it for whatever it is. And so you have video game movies that are, you know, generally bad. You have the Resident Evil franchise that's super popular, and I feel if it wasn't Resident Evil, it would be an okay franchise. Because if you watch them, not as Resident Evil movies, they're not horrible. They're just like, you know, campy action movies, and that's pretty much what they are. And I've seen all of them. I have the first three on DVD, and the last one that came out, Retribution or whatever, I actually enjoyed that more than I enjoyed Afterlife. And it's mainly for the end fight because it was an actual fight where it was like actual combat instead of like all the CG stuff when they fought Wesker in the other movie. So I really enjoyed that. They were actually like punching and kicking each other. I thought it was pretty cool. And the first Resident Evil movie I really enjoyed. That's my favorite one because that is an actual good video game movie because it does what Resident Evil does in the game world. It scares you. It's not like super scary or anything. It's your basic horror movie, and it has its few jump scares. But as far as being a video game movie for Resident Evil, it wasn't too bad. And the second one wasn't either. As far as the story, I just hated the second one because they put Mike Epps in it, and that made me mad because it's like, Mike Epps is super funny, and I like him in his comedy movies, but you can't put someone like that in a movie like this and let him be the comedy person. At least not as funny as he was. It could have been a lot, toned down, but he was like super funny, and he had like the gold guns, which were a reference to Code Veronica, but in the real world, it just seems stupid and ridiculous. Like he just has two gold handguns. I mean, I got the reference. I didn't then, because at the time I was just pissed. I'm like, why does he have gold guns, and why is Mike Epps in this movie? But you know, I got the reference a few years later because I never thought about that movie after I saw it. I was really mad about it. But it did follow. It basically skipped two and went straight to three. It had Nemesis, and like the end of the movie flat out took some stuff from Code Veronica, like she was running from the helicopter and the whole gun drop thing. But those movies, the Resident Evil ones, are generally seen as crappy movies. But the first one, despite what anyone says, is a flat out good video game movie, and it's a good movie on its own. But with it being a video game movie, you have to compare it. It's pretty good. They cut out the mansion for the most part, which I understand, but for what it did, and it had its own story even then, with the little twist and stuff. I thought it was pretty sweet. And then you have other video game movies, like the other Resident Evil movies, the 3D ones. Those are great. And the first one, which I wish I could think of the name of it. I think it was I can't even remember it. But the first one, oh, Degeneration, that's what it was. That one was more of a horror game, or more of a horror experience than the second movie was, and that one was with Leon and Claire for the first one, and that was a really good movie. And I haven't seen that in a long time, but when I first watched it, I thought, this is really sweet. And it, led up to Resident Evil 5 with how Umbrella disappeared and Tricell came about and all that stuff. And I thought it was really good how they did it. And then the second movie, Damnation, was more of an action-based one, and it was, still Leon again, I guess, because Leon's pretty much everyone's favorite since 4 came out. He's generally the favorite character from Resident Evil. But, that one was more action based, and that had Ada in it, and it was a really sweet movie. Like, the action was great to me, and it wasn't really scary, except for, like, a little part where he's, like, underground going through, like, these little tunnels and stuff. And overall, I thought that was a really good movie, too, and that led up to Resident Evil 6. And I'm wondering, if they'll keep doing that, because it seems like a thing that they're going to do now. Because obviously the games come out a few years apart, so they have time to make a movie and then lead it up to the story of the game. And it's actually pretty cool. Although what they show in the second movie doesn't really translate too much into the game, because in the second movie there's a little plot where they actually control like the liquors, and that's like not in 6 at all. So I don't know. But it was still a really cool component for the movie. And other video game movies, you have like Dante's Inferno, which I bought. Like pretty much all the visceral stuff I have, like Dante's Inferno, and I have both the Dead Space games. The Dante's Inferno movie is pretty good. It's pretty much, it is Dante's Inferno in movie form, so it's not like the Dead Space movies where it gives you something extra. It is Dante's Inferno, because you kind of can't just make up something. So it is Dante's Inferno. It's different from the game because certain things happen in different ways. Like in the game, you can basically absolve people and they'll go to heaven, and you can just do that left and right. But in the movie, it's a lot. I can't say it's a lot better, but it's a lot different because he only does it once, and I won't spoil it even though it's super old. And odds are, if you haven't played it now, you won't. It is a good game. You can get it super cheap, so I would advise getting it, or at least playing to rent it. But he absolves this person, and he only does it once, and like he's in hell and stuff, and so the devil gets like super pissed at him, like how dare you, absolve someone that I have, that basically I own. And I thought that was a really good plot point for the movie because in the game you can just help whoever you want and you can just get extra points and stuff like that. But in the movie, it's a lot different because they have to, they have to make it a special point and stuff. He's just like, you're healed, you're healed, you're healed, and the devil does nothing. So I thought it was really cool how they did that. And for this one, the animation changes for each circle of hell. And for the most part, they're okay. There was only like one that I didn't really like because it made him look like super scrawny. And he had like really long hair. And I was like, this looks kind of dumb to me. But most of them look really cool. And one of the things I always wanted, which I wanted for the second Dead Space movie, which it would cost a lot to do this, but I thought it would be amazing if they gave you the option to choose like the regular movie is all the different animation styles, but you get an option to pick the different animation styles for the whole movie, which I thought would be really sweet. Like if you like one artist's rendition better than the other, you could just have that play for the entire film, and that would be sweet. And so I think it was a good movie for what it was. Like if you've never played the game, I think you'd still enjoy the movie. Like and even if you have played the game, like I said, certain things do change, so it's not like exactly the same. So that's pretty cool too. And then you have like the Dead Space movies. Uh, People generally, what I hear, people don't really like the second one because of the whole multiple animation styles. Um, Personally, I didn't mind it at all. I thought all the animation styles were pretty cool. The 3D, it did look weird, but that's just because I wasn't used to it. But the multiple animation styles were pretty sweet to me, and plus, certain based on how the story went, it could like I remember the first story ends and everyone's outside, but when the second character tells the same story, it starts from the end of the first, and since it's a different, animator, they're actually inside of a building instead of it just being outside on like this little platform. And so they're inside the building and like all the rigs look different than they did in the last scene. And I thought that was pretty cool. Like sometimes the characters do look weird, just like in the Dante's Inferno movie. Sometimes the characters you might not like how they look. It's like it just looks really weird, and you'll kind of go from a style that you might really like to a style that you really hate, and you just have to go with it. But for the most part, I thought Dead Space Aftermath was a great movie. Plus, it was between one and two, and it gave you more story for one of the characters in Dead Space 2, and that was pretty cool just to see. Like you hear his story, but not from his perspective, and so it's really cool to actually experience the story and see exactly what he did when he was like going crazy and stuff. And the first movie, Dead Space Downfall, um, both movies, by the way, or pretty much all three of these, super gory movies because you got Dante's Inferno, you're like going to hell and stuff, and then Dead Space. If you've played Dead Space or you've seen Dead Space, it's pretty much that in anime form, and it's probably nastier than you see in the games where in the game you're like shooting off limbs and stuff, and you can get chopped up or smashed. But in the movies, it's like someone gets chopped up, you see actual organs come out instead of like a spine and then it's just red and that's supposed to be the rest of the body. And so like people get chopped up and it'll be like super fast and then their body like split open. It's really gross. Like you can't really see it, but that right there, that's probably the best example I can give you right now. But yeah, like people get crushed and like eaten and chopped up. And the first movie, it's a single um, animation style, so it doesn't change like the second one. And this one tells the story pretty much like right before one. It's pretty much during the time of Dead Space Extraction. So it takes place during that time, which is like right before one, and it ends just like Dead Space Extraction. It ends as one is beginning, and like Isaac and his crew are coming to the Ishimura. But I think it's a great movie for what it does. It has its own little story, and it has the exact same essence of the Dead Space game, except it's more characters, and you get to see it's not as scary. It's more suspense than it is horror because you never know what's happening. Because if you don't know the Dead Space games, pretty much when people get affected by this outbreak, it's a mental infection pretty much. So people like they'll seem normal 1 minute, and then the next minute they're going insane and they're like either hurting themselves or they're trying to kill other people, and it could just come out of nowhere. And it's a really good, that's what's good about the movie when they always have characters together in the Dead Space movies. Just like in Extraction, certain characters seem normal, but then they're not as normal as they seem from the beginning, or they change over time because people get affected by what are called markers in the game, and you just can't stop it. Sometimes some people are, some people aren't, and unfortunately, the people that are, they lose it and they start killing other people, and it makes for a good movie, whether it's coming or not. It's movies that you could easily watch over and over again. Like I guess if I had to choose out of the three, I probably would choose the first Dead Space movie, and I guess that's mostly because it just goes in order. And then as for Aftermath, it kind of goes into the past and then comes back into the present, and you see what happens to each character after they tell their story. But I do enjoy like, both movies and Dante's Inferno as well. So you should definitely check out all three of those if you like video game movies, or at least if you like the franchise, you should really check them out. And even if you don't, you probably enjoy the experience itself. Like Dante's Inferno, it started off. It's pretty much I was about to say an epic because it says an animated epic on here, but it's a poem or like a tale pretty much. So you could enjoy it without having to read the old form of it. And you could watch a visual version that you really enjoy, or you could watch the Dead Space movies, and you'll see characters you won't know. Like if you watch the second one, it won't add anything for you, but you'd still enjoy it for what it was, and that would be a really good video game movie set in a universe that's done very well. So if you ever wonder, or you ever think there are no good video game movies, there are a few. You got these three. You got the Resident Evil movies, and I guess the first live action Resident Evil movie. That's not bad either. So you can check those out. Oh, Final Fantasy. That's the one I've kept forgetting to mention. I'm sure everyone already knows about that one. Obviously, Advent Children and not the first Final Fantasy movie that was weird and had nothing to do with Final Fantasy. And it wasn't a horrible movie either. I saw that after a long time, and I was like, this is really weird that it's even called Final Fantasy, but I don't know, it was. But as a movie by itself, once again, that's not a bad movie. It had an interesting story and stuff with all the weird spirit things, like if you get caught in it, it'll kill you and all that stuff. Interesting story, had nothing to do with Final Fantasy. It wasn't even, it was just, I don't know. It had nothing to do with Final Fantasy, and it was weird that they called it that, but Advent Children was really freaking sweet, and I love that one. Don't have it, but I've seen it. It was sweet. So check out those video game movies. I'm sure there's something else that I might have missed. I honestly think those are the only good video game movies that I know of. Um, so let me know if I missed any movies or certain shows, because I know like Sonic has a few shows and Mario has a bad one. I think both the Sonic shows are pretty good, or at least the original Sonic the Hedgehog, and then Sonic X was okay. I mean, it had a bunch of people, but it did follow like Sonic Adventures 2, and then it went beyond that and had a bunch of stuff with them in space that was weird. I can't really remember, but they did a bunch of stuff there. I don't know what you thought about Sonic Underground. I barely even remember that. I just remember there's a green hedgehog. He looked pretty cool, so I liked him. But comment, rate, subscribe if you like, and thanks for watching.